All right. Hello and welcome to Real Estate Roundtable with MRTG Capital. This is our inaugural podcast episode. We'll call this episode 0. Does that sound good?
I like it. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So, and I did kind of steal that too. I did hear that once. I'm not going to lie.
Nah.
But we'll call this episode 0. So, why are we here? So, Real Estate Roundtable with MRTG Capital, we're just quite simply looking to demystify any and all topics real estate investing related. That's where, our background, our passion lies. And we want this, podcast to be something where when you tune in every time, you're learning something new. So if you're new to real estate syndication, as an example, you get to tune into an episode. You hear about real estate syndication, you understand what it is, you get educated. It's a safe space, right? The one fun thing with real estate is, we all have to learn certain topics, right? You have to learn topics about insert whatever. And obviously, as with anything, you learn the best by doing, but you first have to hear about it as well. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, just think about it this way. When, we've been friends a long time now, we've been business partners for a while. And when I first came to you, you had a lot more real estate experience than me. But I said, hey, we need to start doing real estate syndication. You're like, what is that? And so if you're listening to this podcast or watching us, that's what we're looking to do here, right? We just want to make sure that you can come in any and every topic that we can possibly uncover. I mean, obviously, if you're a seasoned vet, there may be things where you're like, yeah, I know that. But there also may be a part of that episode where we're interviewing something where they give you a nugget that you're like, man, that just can just set my business on fire. So that's what we want to look to do. I want to give you insights. We'll obviously be bringing people in. We'll give you a backhand, or a behind the scenes look at our company, what we're doing. We definitely don't want to, be in here just giving you one view of things, right? We want to just, open the kimono, so to speak, and give you a view into everything in the real estate investing world. So with that being said, my name is Tom Goodge. I'm with my business partner, Mike Rohm. He puts the MR in MRTG Capital. So with this being the inaugural episode, Mike, let's just start with some intros. Let's, get our listeners to hear a little bit about us. So dive into a little bit about Mike Rohm.
What you got? Me? Perfect. Well, like you said, I have a little experience. 37 years old, married, family, have 2 kids, living right outside of Pittsburgh. First started in real estate. I was 22 years old. Purchased, me and my wife, we were not married at that time. We were actually getting married. Purchased our residential home, fixed it up. So it wasn't a fix and flip. It was a fix and keep. So they call that the BRRRR method now. But back then we had no idea what it was.
You youngins, back in my day, we didn't call it the BRRRR. We called it a fix and keep.
Right.
Good deal.
So we did that. We fixed it up. And a year later, at 23, we bought our first row house, which we made a rental. That was the whole idea. We wanted to do it while we were young, didn't have kids, and were able to spend the time. So we bought a row house. A year later, had a real estate agent call me, had a duplex for sale that was a couple blocks away. He was the agent right next to my rental. So he knew I was getting started out. And he said, hey, I have this duplex for sale. Had no idea how I would do it. Had our money in the residential
just
home.
Kind of figure it out, right?
So he helped me figure that one out and took off from there. So we were buying single families, duplexes, quadplex at one point. I've had some of those rentals. I've sold them off, during those times. I was young. So I figured, hey, I'd like to cash in my pocket, made money on them, flipped them, whatever I needed to do. And then recently, about a little over a year ago, me and you, we did a 17-unit motel conversion to apartment complex.
That's right.
So that's how Tom and I got together with the business side. So I've been doing it for about 14 years now, 15 years with my personal residence, and just really have grown. So sitting at over 40 units currently. That's not 40 properties, count those different units as doors.
That's right.
So been doing it for a while, over 40 units. Now that's direct ownership by myself or partnership with people like that. So as you mentioned, the syndication I thought that's all you could do before, ownership or partnership. And Tom opened me up to the other side of things.
Mind blown.
Yeah. But that's about me. I mean,
Awesome, good deal. And I guess, a little about me for those of you just tuning in. So, Tom Goodge, I am 41 years old as of the time of this recording. A lot of times you always hear be like, how old is that person? Right?
you're
Like,
right.
like, some people look young too, and you're like, how old are you really? Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, as of this recording in 2023, I'm 41 years old. Same thing. Wife, two kids, two beautiful daughters, Chloe and Aurora. And yeah, for me, my story it was a little different. So right out of high school, and Mike and I we go way back, back to high school in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, a very long time ago now at this point. But when I got out of high school, I went right into the military. I actually enlisted at age 17 when I was a junior. And at the time, I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. It's funny how things changed though. Back then, growing up in Western Pennsylvania, we have a hunting culture, we'll call it, right? We love hunting and fishing, and at the time I was very jealous of everyone, of all of the hunting TV shows because they never came to Pennsylvania.
Right.
And I was like, what's up with Texas, right? Pennsylvania's awesome. And so I went about things in a little bit different way. I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I knew that's how I would be able to get money, right? And to create wealth. But I didn't, I mean, you're 17 years old, you don't go much past that.
Okay.
And what I was thinking was this. I was like, I can go there, and if I get into the Air Force, and this is how my mind at 17 worked to become an entrepreneur. It's a little bit different now. But I was like, all right, if I go into the Air Force, I can get ahead of my competition who's going to college, and I'll come out. I'll do 6 years in there. I'll come out. They'll be at entry level. I'll be ahead of them. And then I'll be able to make enough money then to start a business. So in my mind, go be an employee and then make enough money to then go invest in a business that then in turn will be allow me to create an outfitter that will get the people to come to Pennsylvania to hunt. That's how a 17-year-old's mind worked. Well, didn't work out that way, so to speak. But I did go into the Air Force, and I met tons of entrepreneurs or those who had an entrepreneurial mindset. Everything from like a friend who had 600 self-storage units, right? Like I'm 18 years old hearing about, another 18-year-old having 600 self-storage units. And I'm like, what?
That's crazy.
In addition to a 4-wheel drive shop and all of these things. And I'm like, man, I was like, that is what I want. So when I got to my first duty station, that is the one thing that changed me a little bit where, and just because of those experiences, I'm reading how to write a winning business plan. Like I'm reading this, on a night shift, a 12-hour shift, when other people are like, hey, what are we doing, this weekend? We're going out and, getting drunk kind of thing. And so that is where things happen. And even when I was getting out of the Air Force, I had it set in my mind. Originally I was going like, I'm getting self-storage facilities created, and didn't get that out of the gate, which is all good because you and I right now we're getting quotes and doing self-storage in that one area that we have. So that's awesome. That will be fulfilled just many years later. But with that being said, at least the mindset was there. And I was like, okay, well, when I get out, I'm going to do 10 years of, do 10 years of hard time as an employee. That's what I thought. Yep. And then, I'll go out and be an entrepreneur. But I didn't know real estate investing was where my passion was going to be at. It was meeting people like you. It was meeting other people that invest in real estate, where that really uncovered that, where I'm like, man, this seems awesome. And my first, we'll say, foray into real estate investing, well, actually, initially, I was going to do the exact same thing like you did, right? I took out the home equity line of credit. We have a little 40-acre farm in the middle of nowhere. And what do you do with some extra, equity? I was like, hey, let's go buy some multifamily. So I had done a ton of research and, a lot of studying up on multifamily. I was super stoked. And you and I walked, as my real estate agent, walked a ton of properties, and almost came to close on a 5-unit. And it was at that time that my stepdad had lost his job, where he was a salesperson for a paper manufacturer, like actually the creators of paper who also do paper coating and things of that nature. And he was talking about having lots of books of business. And instead of buying real estate, I went ahead and started a paper coating company with my stepdad, which was cool in and of itself. But how that translated into real estate was that I knew enough from reading all of my books that I'm like, hey, you know what? I want to protect this, I want to protect our business from someone slipping and tripping and falling and things of that nature. So I was like, Dad, I'm creating a separate entity for this. I'm going to buy like my investment into our business. I'm going to go ahead and buy the building. So I went and found, and same thing, you walked a ton of properties with me. God love you. And we ended up settling on this 9,600 square foot building outside of Johnstown, a little town called South Fork, and it had everything we needed. It had a loading dock. It had everything. It was awesome. And so we buy this building and get it in its own entity and then rent it to our company that we started. And I got out good in that kind of deal. I get the building and he has to pony up and get the $1 million machine to do the business, but it all worked out in the end. So that's good. But yeah, just like you said though, then, fast forward just a couple years later, and you and I, we go and we're talking about, hey, how can we partner together? And we didn't just jump right into buying a 17 unit motel to apartment conversion. It was, I know, a little bit of prodding on my side as well, saying we need to go big, right? You're like, hey, let's convert a house. I'm like, no, we need thousands of units, Mike. How are we going to do thousands of units? And that's really where that came from. But I mean, for our listeners, before that though, I mean, we were, at the goal line for not a mobile home park, but an RV park, right? That had we had a church camp that we almost bought and we were super close for that.
Yeah, we had a lot of bids out for adding the spots. My family, we were big campers, and just looking at what we were spending for a piece of gravel spot to park your camper overnight was $100 a night. I can get hotels cheaper than that. So Tom and I, we found it had its own sewage system, the septic.
That's right.
What do you call it?
Oh, treatment plant.
Treatment plant.
It was massive. I didn't even realize those existed at that time. It was kind of hilarious. I'm like, wow.
They had the treatment plant. They had cabins. They had acres that weren't being utilized. So we had people come out and give us bids to run the electric. We would run the electric, run the water, run the sewage to it. It was going to be huge. And that was actually right before COVID.
Right before COVID, yeah.
But, man, we would have been stretched so thin on that property. Now, if we knew what COVID did, we may have went out of business before COVID was in full swing. Now we know COVID was a good thing for that type of businesses. We had no idea, and I don't know if we would have lasted that long for what we would have put into it. But, I mean, like you mentioned, the mindset of what you were doing whenever you were away at the military while other people were doing things. So it's all about timing. I really believe that. We could have done certain things, but in our mindsets, we would want to. I don't know if we'd have been ready and able to handle it until having those experiences behind us.
Absolutely.
And part of it goes hand in hand with the units. Whenever you got the paper coating company, you had the offer accepted, had the inspections on those 5 units, just the renovations for what was needed outside of what the inspector found. Exactly. It was the timing. You're like, hey, I don't want to put $100,000 into putting interior French drains and fixing the appliances and getting them up to what they needed to rent. And that was perfect because that allowed you to do the paper coating company. Because if you would have went and bought those properties, you would have had your money spent, and you actually most likely probably wouldn't have been able to do the paper coating. So it's all about the timing, and things happen for a reason there.
100%. And even just the experience with that company, right? When you start a small company, it's not like you're getting a crazy large staff with you as well. So all of the things that I had to learn, from little things like creating purchase orders to managing the books on the back end, right? Because we didn't have a CPA right out of the gate. We didn't have so many things. And that was huge because it's like, all right, understanding running a business, because I mean, when you're doing a multifamily large business, right? Whether you're doing a syndication company or, traditional JVs, you're running a business, and there's so many facets to that a lot of people, getting into real estate investing wouldn't have the background for. So, it put all the pieces together. But I would say that the one thing that was great about all of this, especially all of the different deals that we've walked, is like, man, we're kindred spirits, right? Like we both, because there's so many people that don't have our mindsets. And if you're listening to this podcast right now, especially if you've even made it into our, our overview here, I mean, you're probably one and the same as well, right? So it takes a person. I mean, we're wired differently, and that's good. That's a good thing. So, I mean, that's what we want, for this podcast too, is for those that are wired like us to be able to give some awesome content for you, so that, and also too, I mean, we'll want to hear from you, right? This is episode 0, us just telling us, or telling you about us. We would love to hear, leave comments, whatever. Hey, here's what I would love for you to talk about. We'll talk about topics. We'll bring on people as well. I mean, the fun thing is now, because of in our learning journey, that's the one thing that we do execute, right? But we also make sure that we're, getting sufficient knowledge as well. But we partner with the right mentors. I mean, now at this point, I mean, we have access to people who have $1 billion portfolios, right? Like that we can
Absolutely.
bring on that have a lot of experience, a lot of expertise, and a lot of different topics that they can touch on. So we'll definitely do that for you. But I would say, Mike, the one thing that we would want to hit on for episode 0 is, like, what is MRTG Capital, right? Like, what is it exactly? And like, especially for the listeners here and the viewers that like, okay, I heard real estate investing, I did hear syndication, like your company, obviously, like, what is it?
Yeah. So simply, it's a syndication company, which means we pull people's funds together. So from multiple investors to buy properties. If you think about group buying power, that's really what it breaks down to. So we're group buying power for multifamily assets, apartment complexes, large units. Really, what we're trying to do is fulfill a need for homelessness to help solve it. It's access to affordable housing. So that's what we're doing. We find the need. We find the areas that need housing. Maybe they're apartment complexes that are abandoned. Maybe they just are below quality. Maybe they need the new windows, the roofs, whatever it may be. So that's what we do. We come together and fulfill that need, and it's group buying power. So if you think of it from the retail setting, that's Sam's Club, that's Costco. They're buying it and then giving it to the people cheaper. So that's what we're doing on a real estate side of things. With that being said, our background, we aim to do this show, back to the MRTG side. We want to help educate people. Maybe it's some potential investors, maybe it's just other people out there who uh, have an interest in those type of things. Maybe they may move forward, maybe they may not. So we're just trying to give useful information to help you have an educated decision. Is this something you want to do? Me and you have evaluated a lot of properties, a lot of businesses outside
That's
of
right.
just real estate. Maybe we saw there was a need for something else, and we evaluated and realized it's not a viable option. And that was us learning on the fly. If we would have been able to have somebody else hold our hand and teach us and shortcut this, you did this, what was that, 24, 23, 24 years ago? You were in the military, started thinking about this stuff.
That's right.
I started 15 years ago. If somebody would have cut our learning curve, we would have been a lot further ahead. So,
Or can you imagine taking us young right then and pointing us in the right direction?
right.
Holy cow.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of information out at that time. So I know some of the things we learned. That's whenever Flip This House and those type of TV shows they were on TV. They were showing you how to do it. And I took it. And again, high school, 16, 17 years old, wanting to do that. But, I made minimum wage at a job at that time,
Yeah,
so.
how do we do this with no money down? How do we pull investors?
Right.
All that good stuff.
Where's your credibility? So it took us time, but but back to what we were talking about, what MRTG is. I know I get off on little tangents.
No, I do. That's perfectly fine. And actually, you said something that also spurred my mind too here. So if you're listening, right, and we talk about, hey, our company is a real estate syndication company, right? And obviously we've done deals up, we're new to starting real estate syndication. We've done JVs, we've done, many different type of deals. Real estate syndication, this will be also a good one for you as we really uncover, the different facets. For episode 1, we'll definitely make sure that we, go into all the different facets about the Securities and Exchange Commission, all of that stuff. We'll do a deep dive on that. But ultimately too, for you said, like, to see if this is for you or not, right? If you're a new real estate investor or even a seasoned one, you're like, hey, maybe I want to scale through real estate syndication. It will be good for you to hear, like, really what that means, right? Because I mean, you may have some misconceptions there as well. And because it's really the one thing that we would say outside of the group buying power, it's servant leadership, right? Like, you are there for your investors. Your primary goal is to make your investors money, right? So both short-term and long-term, right? Well, any good real estate deal that you're getting, it has to cash flow, but it also has to have the ability to appreciate, in different markets and different places. Obviously, you may be favoring one over the other, obviously. But the best of both worlds for both are preferred. But always at the center of that is knowing your real estate investors. And a lot of times I think, a lot of people, come into this from selfish motivations, in the sense of like, hey, it's all about me. I want to have a deal myself. How can I get a deal and make all of the money myself? And quite simply, once again, if you're coming to the conclusion of syndication, we're like, hey, I can't do this by myself. Well, that's where your foundation is coming from, the investors, right? Like, you may be getting a single off of a deal, right? Like, you're trying to give your investors a home run. You, as the syndicator, are not trying to get rich off of a single deal. It's there to provide your investors with a repeatable, a duplicatable vehicle to say, okay, hey, I have another 50,000, I have another 150,000. Mike, Tom, what can we do? Help me make my money. I feel confident. So that's one thing that we'll want to peel back for you as well along this journey. What exactly it means to, invest through a syndication. If you're looking to start it, what does that mean as well? Want to give you as much information as possible. I mean, it's a big world out there. This is not one where we're going to try to hoard stuff, keep secrets for ourselves. I mean, the investors that we're going to reach, Mike, those who are listening and watching us, you have a completely different tribe that you have access to that will never know our names. So absolutely, we have no worries whatsoever about you, going and duplicating whatever we're doing. I guess the only thing that we'll always say, we are not legal counsel. We are not accounting, counsel, anything else. So financial and legal advice, do not take this as, we'll call this educational. Yep. There's your disclaimer there. Should have probably said that from the very beginning. Our lawyers will probably have something to say about that. But either way, I mean, as with anything though, right? It's like a lot of people in today's day and age form opinions off of a TikTok video, right? Like, this is how you cure cancer, because I saw it on this video. It's like everyone forgot, for all these years, missed this one. No. We'll give you our advice, but double check. Don't take it for gospel, right? I mean, if we're diving in on the Securities and Exchange Commission in our next episode, make sure that you go to their website and say, okay, Mike was talking about an accredited investor and it's these requirements. Is it true? Right? Like, go there and check it out, right? And then that'll hammer it home as well.
Absolutely. And that's why we do, a lot of research on our side. We have multiple different lawyers and companies that are on our staff, the accountants, everything. So it's trust but verify, so
that's right.
This is what has worked for us. There's going to be other people who said, oh, I flipped the house and lost money. That's possible. That's absolutely possible if you mismanage or don't verify what that investment is. And you just got to dig in. That's all part of the inspections or whatever it may be. But again, it really comes down to, it could be a bad investment for somebody, or it hasn't worked in the past. Well, that's why we do so much due diligence. We are not rushing into deals. These are big deals. They're to assist a lot of people. There's a lot of investors. There's a lot of people who are counting on us for the nice homes. This is their home. This isn't an investment for them. This is what they turn into their personal home and live there. Some, a year, some 20 to 30 years. So we take pride in that and really evaluate the properties and make sure we can turn it into what they're looking for in a home. So
100%. And I just had so many, stories going through my mind of different tenants, right? And for another video, we'll protect the innocent though, and change names.
But that's going to be a separate podcast.
Oh my goodness!
And we talk about writing books about some of these tenants. So and I know, not all of our topics are going to be about multifamily housing. Some are going to be, residential assisted living, storage units, whatever it may be. So it's not all just going to be, if you're not interested in multifamily, we have investors who that's what they're interested in. They're interested in the multifamily, some that are not. So we're going to touch base on everything. Cause as we mentioned before, we evaluated a campground, storage units, we're putting them in to our property. This isn't just multifamily.
That's right.
Podcast.
So we hope that you come with us on this journey. We're super excited that you're here. You stayed through to the end. That's awesome. So episode 0, it's going to be so much, get so much better from here, for sure. But we're excited. And I'll just say this, make sure, like, once again, if you're liking this content as well, share it. Don't keep it to yourself, for sure. And reach out once again if there's anything that you hear that you're like, hey, you know what? I would love to hear more about this. You guys covered this once and really would love a deep dive or whatever.
Yep.
We'll take any and all feedback for sure, because I'm sure after episode 50, we're going to be like, all right, what are we talking about now?
Right.
Right. But we want to keep it going. We're going to be rocking and rolling for you guys. So thanks, and stay tuned for more.
Yeah, and be interactive. We have our Facebook page, the MRTG Capital LLC, on top of our website, mrtgcapital.com. So
That's
if
right.
there are topics or things you want to be interactive with, drop them. We might not get to the next one, but we're here to interact with everyone. So
that's right. Well, good deal.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, stay tuned for the next one. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.